Hi guys, well, I want to do an off-the-cuff style video to talk about everything that's been happening lately, behind the scenes, everything that has been happening in the world of crypto, probably in the world of macro, and sometimes you've just got to have a bit of a brain dump because the number of mind-blowing conversations I've had recently just been unreal, and I think so many of you even that are in the crypto space are not aware of what I'm about to talk about, and let alone the people that are in the real world going about their everyday lives. I think what we're about to see in the next few months, let alone the next 12 to 24 months, is going to be the most disruptive, transformative period in human history. So why is that? Well, there's a combination of forces and narratives that have all got together right at a time when the technology is there to fix them or disrupt them, depending on whose side of the fence you're sitting on, where the power currently lies versus where it's going. Now, obviously, Bitcoin disrupted banking with what it can do. It's an enabler of value to flow around the world between two people. Anyone can send money to anyone. Or not even money, value. What is money versus currency? We can go down that rabbit hole all we like. But that leads me to an even bigger point about what's happening in macro at the moment with all these central banks printing heaps of currency. And for the past 10 years or so, since the financial crisis, all that money has flowed into the banks' coffers because the banks are the people that lend, and the whole theory of economics is that, well, if banks have more reserves, they'll lend more, and we adjust the interest rates so it's easier for people to get loans. But common sense tells people that you don't just go in and get a loan if you don't need a loan. You don't just go in and go into more debt. And look at Australia, where banks, recently the RBA in Australia followed suit like I predicted and did QE and printed $200 billion. And what happened? Well, 85% of that went into mortgages. So who benefits from the mortgages and who gets the mortgages? Well, obviously that leads to bigger bank profits. They've taken effectively no risk because the government are giving them more money. And if anything ever happens, the government bails them out and buys the bonds off them or buys the bad mortgages off them. They get to structure these things up in pretty packages and sell them as, securities and derivatives and all that. In the US, we've recently seen some of the big boys literally going and buying up suburbs 40% above asking, and that's just stopping like families getting a home to put a roof over their head because they don't have enough houses to create more derivative products. Like, this is how out of touch with reality the financial system has got with the tangible real world. And so that's maybe a local example in the US or Australia. But what I think is coming in a huge way is the disruptive forces of crypto and blockchain and money. Yes, it's going to allow for the flow of value, but the flow of information is a whole nother kettle of fish. An open internet where anyone can build an app or start a business with the click of a button with a crude smartphone in any corner of the earth. People are going to be playing games. Look at what Axie Infinity's done. It was a year since I did that video called Top 10 Gaming Projects and said, basically, if you were to just hold these 10, you're going to do so well. You don't have to try and find the next 1000x hidden gem, and just look at Engine, Decentraland, Axie Infinity, Red Fox Labs. The list goes on, and that space is just scratching the surface, NFTs and virtual worlds that we're going to live in. But what Axie Infinity has showed us is that these people can make a living. They're making more than anyone else in their local community just playing games. And you think of it like extras on a movie set or whatever little tasks need to be done. More and more games are going to come out, or virtual worlds where these people can do tasks and make more money than they could working and doing a hard laborious job in their own economy. Now, what does that do? And I've just been speaking to the founder of Illuvium, which is another game that I think is going to blow people away in the crypto space. The founder is Kane Warwick of Synthetics' brother, so watch out for that one. But I think that is going to be one of the first ones that really blows people away. But we're talking about billions of people that might end up playing these games or things on their phone, or VR, AR, whatever it is, a mixture, combination. But think about, what are the local governments and power holders, how are they going to react when millions of people in their economy, they're wondering why they can't get people to work, and they're all sitting there at home, on a computer or on a phone playing and earning more money, and all that money and all those tokens are coming from out the West. And this is the whole digital thick shake theory that I posed a couple of years ago, trying to get Brent Johnson and Raul and Lynn Olden, these people, to understand how disruptive stablecoins were going to be. Not just stablecoins, I guess, but crypto, any form of payment. But the idea is that banks and transfer, border crossing payments, all the traditional legacy stuff, it's so slow compared to everyone has an app on their phone and I can just send you whatever token I want with a click of a button. You don't even need liquidity these days. If you've got these synthetic assets, there's infinite liquidity and zero slippage and zero fees these days, because we can just mint these things that are backed by other collateral. This is just game-changing stuff, right? And so all these people are going to be earning these wages and this money, and it might come into the local community and they can change it into the local stablecoin or currency through, there's going to be local vendors and shops will start accepting it. We've seen El Salvador, they're accepting Bitcoin. They can change their Axie tokens to Bitcoin and then buy groceries with Bitcoin. All this stuff is happening, but it's just going to be a head scratcher moment for those in power thinking, what on earth's happened here? How do we tax that? How do we get people to work in our economy? And that's the whole point that I'm getting at here, is water finds its level, as I always talk about. And the West has got so much money and just had it so good, so much excess, versus these countries that have got so little. And now, because of the payment rails or the value rails or the digital gaming rails, whatever you want to think about these blockchains and what they allow for the flow of these tokens and people to do tasks for these people in these virtual worlds, and that flow is now coming straight to them. And all of a sudden they might have a lot of money. Now, does that cause inflation when all of a sudden there's these people that have got an income that's way higher than they've ever had before, and all this money is going around the world but not through the traditional means? And so what does that do for the local currencies? Are they even needed anymore? And that's kind of where I think this is all going. Like, who is going to use any of these local currencies that have just been absolutely printed to oblivion and hyperinflation, and they take it away from you, they devalue it overnight, when you can have a better money, tokens, freedom, blah blah blah, in your own wallet? So this is way bigger than what people think, and Axie's caught on in just a couple of weeks. Some of these other new games that I know that are coming out are scaled on Ethereum, and with Immutable X, I've got an interview coming out with Robbie and those guys. So this is just all happening so fast. I honestly believe in the next 3 months, we could see millions of people playing, working, living in these virtual worlds and games. And yes, DeFi was massive and disruptive, and the ICO bubble was kind of big at the time and caused a lot of buzz and got global headlines. But I think what we're about to see is the biggest yet. It is so transformative. I think you're kind of picking up what I'm putting down here, in the fact that anyone now can start to do these, take advantage of these opportunities. Like we saw in the world of DeFi farming, when everyone has these big incentives and rewards at the start to get users and eyeballs and attention, that's all coming from the gaming space. And a lot of the traditional gamers are now moving into this space, and they've got a heap of money. Maybe they've got $1 billion of farming rewards. That's $1,000 for 1 million people in these countries. And maybe $100 is an enormous amount of them for a year to play a game. You see what I mean? The numbers that are being thrown around in the crypto world are now coming to these other countries that don't have money, and it's just going to be the biggest game changer we've ever seen. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about. Now, the Fed have got their hands tied. They're in a rock and a hard place. They can't raise interest rates. There's too much debt. No one wants to buy their bonds. There's all this shortage of US debt that they need to print, but again, the traditional rails, they can't get it there. And now you've got these stable coins, which are a better payment rail, and dollars are just pinging around the world everywhere on the form of Tether or whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, the ultimate liability still lies with the central bank. And this is what I think people don't comprehend. And when I said it to Raul, he didn't agree with me, but I don't think he got that point that I was sort of trying to get at, is if you have someone issue a US stablecoin and then they can swap it on a DEX to USDC, then they take it back to Coinbase and try and redeem it for $1 in their account, that has to be honored by Circle or Coinbase. And then they have to have a reserve somewhere of $1. And if there's not enough real dollars in a bank, then that's when they have a line to a big commercial bank, and then they have a line to the Fed. You see where I'm going, where they need actual money, they need reserves because people are coming to claim things that are backed. Now, this gets into another whole rabbit hole conversation about, well, we're so obsessed with is Tether backed or not, and if it's one-to-one backed, but one-to-one backed by what, $1? And what, $1 in a bank? Well, banks don't have to keep one-for-one reserves. They have to keep fractional reserves, and not even that anymore. They've been told that they don't need to keep reserves, and the Fed will print if people ever try and claim, and have a bank run or withdrawals. And so then you're comparing it to something that's not backed by anything. And like that's the benchmark. We're comparing and backing these stablecoins by something that's not backed by anything. It used to be backed by gold. And so then you go full circle and you say all these new coins that are trying to be stable coins, but they're not backed by anything, and they're collapsing on themselves. So it's all this belief system, trust, track record. It's really mind-boggling about, well, what does create value, and would people trust something that's not backed by anything? Can you grow a stablecoin system to $1 trillion worth of value without being backed by anything? What's Bitcoin backed by? Nothing. Well, it's worth $1 trillion. Oh, but that's different. It's gone up in value. Well, yeah, you're just trying to create a currency that's growing like Bitcoin, but it's stable for people to use. And so I think this is probably the biggest problem in crypto at the moment. There is no decentralized stablecoin that works. And that's a really scary thought. So MakeADial has been one of my favorite projects, and it's been a golden child of the space. They haven't been able to keep the peg to $1. They haven't really been able to deal with big fluctuations in price over a longer time frame, so changes in supply and demand. Just when everyone is running to get more stable coins, when prices are crashing, that's when you need people to be putting in more Ethereum to mint more stable coins to meet that demand. But nobody wants to put in Ethereum when the price is crashing and be exposed to that. So a lot of these mechanics don't work. And then you've got all the algo coins. I just think they're too far ahead of their time. We're not going to catch on. The things that are floating and don't have an actual peg, you can tell someone that it's $3 one day and $5 the next, and that's how it's meant to work. Well, how are you meant to price your groceries or your rent or anything in that when it's, I think it's just a little bit too wishy-washy and airy-fairy. Maybe further on down the line, or maybe I'm missing something. Yeah, then you've got these coins that are not backed by anything. A lot of these times they're just scams or clever Ponzi's, and they've got mechanics to try and make them collapse more slowly when people run for the exits. But at the end of the day, in a downturn, I don't think any of these things are going to survive the test of time and strain. But hey, we'll see. I'm all for experimentation. So that's certainly something that I've been toying with the idea of and trying to think about a system and how do you build a perfect system that keeps its peg, can scale up and down, it's decentralized. What do you need? How do you do that? And that's something that I want to have the freedom to work on. I'm taking a little bit of a step back, doing less content. I love building, I love advising, designing tokenomics. Being at the bleeding edge for a few years has kind of got my knowledge to the point now where I can help others as well. And that's kind of something I'm really passionate about. So, yeah, well, hopefully with more coming in the coming weeks in terms of announcements, the Decentraland headquarters, July 31st, we're going to have a launch. And so well done to everyone that was a golden ticket holder. They've been trading at a huge premium to what you paid for those already, those collectible NFTs that get you VIP access to all our events in future. And we're probably a bit ahead of our time. NFTs have only just really started to take off now, and you see everyone opening a headquarters in Decentraland. If you haven't been there, it's got tutorials playing and free educational booths and all that type of thing. But the rooftop is the VIP area, and you need a golden ticket to get into those events. So on that event night, I'll be revealing something pretty special about something I've been working on and toying with. I can't wait for everyone to see everyone there. We've got some really good projects that are talking as well, a bit of a mixture of all the big themes that are happening in the space. Other than that, I guess I've just wanted to catch up with everyone and share those few ideas, because I think crypto in general, Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the good quality projects are probably about to have another a leg up or finish the year strongly. To me, the sideways price action, I don't want to call it manipulation, but there's no doubt in my mind that the big boys are just scooping up these and accumulating Ethereum. I think Ethereum can run to 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 in the next couple of years. All the properties that it possesses are the things that people want. ESG, energy friendly, proof of stake, people want to yield. It's a tech play. Tech stocks are overvalued massively. It's got assets on top of it that are now producing revenues. Every single thing is in its favor. It's scarce. It's about to become more scarce. Fee burning. You cannot make, I think, a more bullish case for it. Now, that's not to say Bitcoin is not still going to be super valuable and probably go to 100K too. Bitcoin tends to have these big runs and take dominance back when we have a technical upgrade. So when we had the hard forks and soft forks and those wars, now we've got the Taproot upgrade, and I think Lightning Network and the node count has gone up, which I've been waiting to see in El Salvador with that adoption. So it's all coming together. There's billions of dollars being thrown into all these different layer one ecosystems and scaling and different narratives that I've spoken about, DAOs and gaming. How can you be possibly bearish? And yeah, they're probably going to throw more regulation at all this space, but really there's not much that they can do. And it's going to go to these other countries that are now all starting to say the race is on. No one wants to be first and no one wants to be last to get all this money, the tech, the ideas. It's going to go there as well. So look, guys, it's never been a more exciting time. Stick in there if you're a little bit bored. I think things are about to go nuts sooner or later, and you make your real money. You set up your portfolio during these tough times, not in the easy times when it's going parabolic and I'm telling people to take profits and everyone thinks they're a genius and it's only going to keep going higher. Do the hard work, stick at it. But I'm super excited for the next, chapter after 4 years. Taking a little bit of a backward step in terms of just not putting the pressure on myself to make as much video content on YouTube, not stressing as much. I've got less managerial responsibilities now with such a huge, great team. But I don't want to give away too much more. A lot of people have been asking about, how do you invest in these things, and I want to get in early and that kind of thing. And that's also something that I think is worth playing with, because the fairest launches I think are the best launches. And I still think you want to stick away from VCs if you can help it, and you want to build token models that prove to people they're not going to get dumped on day one and that kind of thing. So all about these fair value launch models and that type of thing. I really want to get that down pat if I'm working on certain projects with different people, and you've seen how that can play out when you get the structures right, the returns that are possible and all that sort of thing. So I might leave it there for that video. I hope you guys have enjoyed those off-the-cuff words. Let's see where the market's heading on this Sunday night as things are tightening up and coiling up, but I think it's going to be an absolute cracker of a weekly close, and I do think it is going to be a bullish green week next week. It would have to take some really bad news to change that. I just think so many things are bubbling under the surface. Golden ticket holders will post more updates and details of that event in that group. Otherwise, guys, I will see you again soon. But great to check in. So take care. Cheers.